I need to share that yesterday I met with several members of our local LGBTQ community as we try to find a path forward in support of our students. It was a positive and productive meeting where everyone was given the opportunity to speak freely and given us the opportunity to listen and learn. Yesterday was a significant step in bringing our community back together and finding ways to collaborate for the betterment of our district, but more specifically for all of our students. During our time together, we began developing a framework to ensure LGBTQ students continue to feel safe on our school campuses. We identified some key actions that can further support our LGBTQ students and to enhance some of our current district programs already in place. In a joint press conference today, we shared some of those key actions, including further supporting our Alliance High School clubs, Gay Straight Alliance clubs, and expanding clubs at sites where students, staff, and families are expressing the need for support. Identifying willing and interested staff members on secondary school sites that LGBTQ students can look to for a safe place or a safe person throughout their day. Those individuals would have the opportunity to receive some training to ensure they can provide the necessary support for interested students in providing a safe place on campus. Moving ahead and pursuing additional professional development for staff around cultural competency, and not just for the LGBT community, but for all of the demographic competencies that we serve in our community, including identifying appropriate training specific to our transgender students, as well as our lesbian and gay and bisexual students, as there is a differentiation in that support. One of the things we want to do, too, is explore a partnership with some of our community organizations to resurrect a 1-800 call line to provide direct support to students, including our LGBT community. But we know that our kids often have the need to talk to somebody, and so it's an opportunity for them to have support from somebody who cares about them. Over the next 30 days, we'll fine-tune those supports and create a presentation for the community and the board. Thanks to those community leaders who were willing to join me in that effort. It's really crucial that we have conversation with people that we don't necessarily know fully, and to get an opportunity to grow and learn. Appreciate the willingness of others to engage with the district constructively and to provide insight and guidance so that we can collectively support all students. And I want to ensure the community at large that we are thankful you're here, that we invite you to share your thoughts with us, and we understand completely that the community has much to say. And we know that those feelings are deeply held and represent a cross-section of religious, cultural, and community values. That being said, I think it's important to add, for many of you that are here in attendance tonight, that there's an expectation that we will come together in a positive manner and try to show civility and mutual respect for one another. We're example for the children in our district. It's important that we be in space together in a meaningful way and provide a safe space for everyone, and that really starts right here in this boardroom. I think it's important that all voices have the opportunity to be heard, but it's absolutely crucial that we conduct the city's business in an attitude of civility and mutual respect. And we appreciate you being here. Thank you for putting the needs of our city's children first. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn the time back over to Board President Ashjian.
35 members of the community wishing to address the board. You will each have 2 minutes to address the board, up to 45 minutes of our general open session. I will read a couple of names so that we can move it right along. We will first hear from Gary Bredefield, followed by Jim Franklin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Board President and the trustees. I wanted to congratulate Mr. Nelson real fast. My wife, Susan, worked at Powers while he was a vice principal, and let me tell you, all the teachers love that man, and he's going to lead the district to great heights. I agree with everything you said early on about the LGBT community. Mr. Superintendent Nelson, needs to be inclusive. Everybody needs to be safe. All kids need to be safe. I absolutely believe we're all one people under God. Whether you're heterosexual, homosexual, transgender, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, we're all one people under God and under the law. And there never should be any discrimination, any harassment for anybody. But I also believe that we are in a cultural war for the hearts and minds of our children. We are now a society of relativism. No longer is there right, wrong, good, bad, healthy, unhealthy, anything goes. Whether it's promoting the legalization of drugs, minimizing the consequences of abortion, weakening our criminal laws through Prop 47 and 57, or promoting a sexual agenda or a lifestyle to our children. Two recent examples of that: Rockland, California, we have a 6-year-old boy in a kindergarten class who leaves the class, comes back in dressed as a girl because he believes he's transgender. And then the teacher reads a story about transgender. And of course, kids go home, complain to their parents, and they're frightened that they're going to be switching. Now, the law says that you want to give age-appropriate curriculum. I would question whether that's age-appropriate curriculum for a kindergarten class. In Teen Vogue magazine, a magazine that are read by 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, and 15-year-olds, the latest edition is a guide to anal sex for teenagers. This is to promote so they don't get pregnant. It's right here. I didn't make it up. It's shocking, and it exists. That's what's being promoted to our children. You can look it up in Teen Vogue magazine. It is the parents' responsibility to teach and educate their children regarding sex, gender values, healthy behavior, and morals.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Butterfield.
Okay.
Mr. Franklin.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Nelson, I like what you said about a safe place. Cornerstone Church, where I pastor, was one of the very first safe places some 2 decades ago when that whole thing started to provide a safe place. I think schools need to be a safe place for everybody that's involved. I think schools also need to be a safe place for parents. Parents are the ones then that are sending their children. You're doing a great job educating, and I appreciate the great work that you do and the civic work that you do serving on these boards. I have educators that are in my family. But in that, as you provide safe places, as you've done tonight, and providing safe environments and able to get there, parents need to know that when they get there, that their rights and their values are not being undermined. All of us know the statistics that the family unit, as that is strengthened, our society is strengthened. Our education for our children is strengthened when they come from a strong family unit. When those values are undermined, when they're put in conflict, then that is where parents, I think, are concerned. So my appeal to you today from a member of the public is that you would not only make it a safe place for kids, for all children, but you make it a safe place also for parents, that they can have that trust and have that security that when their children are being sent there, they're being educated, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but that their values are not being compromised or even being challenged, because that's something then that families do, keeping that family unit strong. Thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership in parental rights and what we have seen. And thank you again for your service.
Francine Farber, Mrs. Francine Farber, followed by Dawn Levitt. Okay, we have, is Mr. Levitt here? Mr. Donald Levitt? There's the Farbers. If we could follow with Mr. Levitt.
Good evening, board and superintendent. I'll save a little time by just saying that. Mary Farber and I are here this evening because every school year is special to us, but this one is very special because for the first time at the end of this school year, we're going to have some students from various Fresno high schools who are going to receive a Steve Scholarship. And we have been waiting almost 6 years for this to happen, and we're grateful that we're alive and well to see this day. And we wanted to tell you that when this cohort group left Tehipity, there were 58 students going into 9th grade in various high schools here who qualified as Steve Scholars. 20% of that group has moved out of the district, and that's a very very big surprise to us as far as the transient quality of the district. We knew it was great, but we didn't know it was that high. So there are about 46 students left from that first group that went into high school, and of that group, about 50% right now qualify to get a scholarship at the end of this school year. We had hoped for more, but really that's 50% of 46, so it should be about 23 or 25 students, and we're really thrilled that that's going to happen. We're going to have some special things going on this year because it will be the very first year. And the students are all over the district now, rather than all being in one place at Tehipity, although we have more cohorts there. But right now, there are students in grades 7 through 12, probably close to 200 of them, who are on track in some way to be Steve's scholars, so we're really excited about that. But we're going to have special things happening, and one of them is going to be an opportunity for the students who get the first Steve Scholar Scholarship to come together with their families for a dinner at Tehipity, where they all started. And we hope to invite all of you. We will invite all of you, and we hope that you'll all be able to come. And on September 15th, we're going to kick off this year's Steve Scholars cohort at Tehipity, so you're all invited then, too.
Thank you, Ms. Farber. I wasn't prepared.
Thank you, trustees. In 2018, Steve Scholars will award 25 scholarships, and every year after that, that number will double, hopefully in perpetuity. The success of this scholarship program really depends on the cooperation of the educators. And at Tehipity Middle School, we have been blessed with two wonderful principals, Yvonne Zeisling and Dave Peters. And in addition, from other parts of the district, we owe thanks to Michael Allen, Ann Bittard, Anita Hernandez, and Brian Wall. All too often, there are letters to the editor in the Bee and callers to talk shows who criticize teachers and administrators. If these critics would spend a day visiting or assisting at a school and watching classes in action as we have been privileged, their attitudes would change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Levitt, followed by Chris Jarvis.
Good evening. What I have to say is in defense of Brooke Ashjian's recent remarks. Jonathan Rauch, a Yale graduate, a writer, and a political intellectual, writes in the summer 2017 issue of National Affairs, quote, "I am gay and an atheist, and I disagree with most of what religious conservatives have had to say about gay equality and same-sex marriage. But my respect for the First Amendment's unique protectiveness of religion and also for the unique social centrality and sensitivity of religion strongly inclines me to find ways to allow religion to go on about its business whenever possible." Continuing, "I also accept that human sexuality is part and parcel of the theologies of many religions, and to avoid subjecting religious individuals and faiths to public inquisitions, I believe we should generally treat religious objections as sincere and genuine, at least as far as law and public policy are concerned. This means that gays must understand that religion's opposition of homosexuality arises out of their free exercise of religious liberty. Hatred towards gays may sometimes be the effect of their religious expressions. It is these negative effects that the gay rights movement must weed out. But religion's core belief of anti-LGBT is a legitimate religious liberty, according to Jonathan Rauch. So proponents of gay rights must be able to distinguish between what is a legitimate expression of religion's defense of heterosexual rights and what is not a legitimate expression in order to avoid iconoclastic attacks.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt.
I'd like to submit these remarks.
Sure, we'll take them right there. Thank you. Mr. Jarvis, Chris Jarvis, followed by Abel Gutierrez.
Good evening. My name is Chris Jarvis. I'm president of Gay Central Valley, and we operate the Fresno LGBT Community Center. Gender identity and orientation identity has been decided. There is no question. If you are questioning why someone is LGBT, then you are not educated. It's not a belief issue. It's a fact issue. We are no different than anyone else. We know who we are the same way that you know who you are. We are not swayed by words. We are not altered by suggestion. We are who we are innately. According to Mr. Ashjian, talking about LGBT people can turn kids gay. Mr. Ashjian's comments belong in the shadows, not in the light. Allowing him to remain in his position is not only reflective of him, but is reflective of this board. Education is never a bad thing. Education is never something to be held back because information may change someone's mind. Every respected scientific study finds that sex education reduces teen pregnancy, reduces STDs, and reduces abortions. Education on LGBT issues has zero influence on who we are. We already know who we are. For those students that are struggling with whether it's safe to be who they are, education about LGBT people will open the door to their freedom. It will show them that we are here, we exist, and we are okay. Mr. Ashjian's comments and shared beliefs do the opposite. Let's imagine for a moment that Mr. Ashjian's comments had been directed towards students who are black, or Hispanic, or Asian, or disabled, or female. Would he still be here? His comments were not a mistake or an oversight. They are the latest example of a string of comments by him on this subject. To the rest of the board, it's 2017. Stop supporting belief as equal to fact. Stand up for truth. Stand up for integrity. Stand up for science. Stand up for reality. Most of all, stand up for the students.
Thank you. Mr. Gutierrez, followed by Mary Haskin.
All right. My name is Abel Parra Gutierrez, and I want to say something to you. It seems that part of this community is more worried about their children's sex education than their formal education. I worked for the district for 23 years, and all the students are safe in this district. All the students are safe. I have never seen anything against the students, never in 23 years. I'm a friend of education. I helped Valerie Davis, Carol Mills, Michelle Asadorian, and Larry Moore with their campaigns to become board members. I didn't help Chris de la Cerda because I think he was appointed by the last, I think he was appointed to that position by Michael Hansen. Michelle Asadorian and I wanted the community to elect a new board member when Tony Bank was gone. We went home to home looking for signatures. The signatures were enough, but I don't know what happened, what went wrong with the process in Sacramento. I would like to see Fresno Unified School District going in a successful path for students, parents, teachers, and staff. It's a good to have an independent board. It's good to have an independent board of trustees, an independent auditor to see where all this money go. All these monies go to education and to the management. And thank you very much. And don't worry, your children are safe.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Mary Haskin, followed by Sandy Tarosian.
Hi. I'm a long-time parent volunteer. Many of you know me. I wanted to just speak in support of a couple of different things, that picking this man was the right decision, and I hope things move forward. I'm a Christian. I have my beliefs, but I also teach my kid to be inclusive, my boys to be inclusive. So I'm here on a couple of things that I hope that everybody in the community can be respectful of each other, because both sides exist. We need to coexist. I do, unfortunately, Mr. Ashjian, think that your personal beliefs, which I respect, were probably inappropriate to put in an article. But at the same time, you don't know what kind of work he does. Maybe he's has important work, maybe he doesn't. It's up to these people who have to work together to know if they can move forward. So I would just hope and be in support of the board, but also be in support of everyone here, not to turn this into a circus, because it takes away from the work that they really need to do. And we're spending 45 minutes just to allow so many people to talk. Just come up and be respectful and don't rip people apart. That's all I'd like to see, is because our community and our society is being ripped apart. And we just need to make it upon ourselves to do our part to work together. That's it.
Thank you. Sandy Terosian, followed by Jason Barbarick.
Board President and Governing Board, thank you for this opportunity. I consider myself an education warrior, and just about the time I think I've uncovered all the perils of education, something like the California Healthy Youth Act rears its ugly head. I'm here to support Brooke Ashjian. Despite making it very clear that Fresno Unified would abide by the law, he has been crucified for merely voicing his opinion. That is his constitutional right. I am opposed to the state mandating that public schools teach children alternative, anti-biblical sexuality at any age, but it doesn't make me a bigot or a racist. It's just contrary to God's word. If any of you are believers or Christians, and you don't stand up against this, I believe you're giving it your stamp of approval. The American College of Pediatricians has called this education child abuse. Their president said, teaching the myth that a child can be trapped in the wrong body will potentially lead to fear that they aren't the sex that their bodies clearly indicate. I have a friend that asked me to read this tonight. Quote, I believe exposure to any subject material is an opportunity to raise questions and change minds. My adult kids today are my greatest blessings, and both are gay. I never imagined this to be. However, the school educator saw and accessed the potential, and so it goes. No doubt, today's education technology delivery system will provide a greater yield of gays or non-binary gender students than ever before. And I would like to close with this quote from George Washington. If freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Thank you.
Jason Barbarick, followed by Paul Dictos.
Good evening. I'm here today to show support for the students and families of Fresno Unified. I was at the last board meeting and witnessed members and supporters of the LGBT community eloquently, powerfully, and respectfully voice their concerns over the comments and actions attributed to Mr. Ashjian and the Fresno Bee. But I wonder if those same individuals have reached out and requested a meeting with Mr. Ashjian to initiate a dialogue to help improve understanding and progress. I then watched as members De La Cerda and Davis tried to use the board meeting as a means to put the spotlight on themselves and in part diminish the comments that were shared with the community members, by the community members. And I don't have the time this evening to get into the editorial that was written by Mr. De La Cerda. Mr. Ashton's attributed comments should not have created this firestorm that now exists. It is true that in a perfect world, public schools should not be responsible for presenting sex education materials. It should be the parents that take care of this. But unfortunately, this isn't a perfect world. And not all parents are addressing this subject as they should, making it a necessity for schools to address it. So, as he should have, Mr. Ashton voted to approve the new state curriculum. The other controversial statement that this curriculum may sway students isn't untrue either. There is a certain demographic of students that have had extremely difficult lives. Some have suffered physical, mental, and emotional issues. Some live in foster care because of these, while others are trapped in these circumstances. This obviously creates increased levels of stress, depression, confusion, and despair, making these kids more susceptible to participate in behaviors that they might not under different circumstances. These behaviors could include substance abuse, gang and criminal activity, and premature sexual activity. These not yet fully developed minds are easily swayed, and the evidence of this is all around us. The vast majority of teenage students already know what their sexual orientation is, but there are still some that do not. In regards to sexual orientation, schools should not be the ones promoting gay or straight lifestyles. So it's time to put these issues to rest, create dialogue where needed, and continue to address the needs of the students of Fresno Unified. There's been so much progress made in the last year and a half, and Mr. Ashton's leadership and involvement have been instrumental.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Marilyn Jolly, followed by Andrew Fabella. Marilyn Jolly, followed by Andrew Fabella.
Hello. First and foremost, I'd like to thank President Ashton and the board members for all their hard work. I come in peace to speak from my heart tonight. Let us not forget Brooke Ashjian and this board voted in the sexual education curriculum and are following the federal law. But families have an important role in the rearing of their children. The freedom to teach values and character to those we are stewards over is essential to a strong community. The Constitution gives us the right to freely express ourselves and our beliefs in free speech. It allows families to worship or not worship how they wish, no matter what your religion or no religion. We have a right to express our beliefs without fear of losing our jobs or being attacked and bullied. Everyone is guaranteed the right to believe what their conscience dictates and to not be punished for expressing their beliefs. No person or group has a right to silence anyone's freedom of speech. The government or school or an outside group like the Fresno Bee surveys that were conducted should not be mandated and are overstepping parental stewardship. I was shocked by the survey that was conducted without adult consent in Fresno Unified to children. I have to ask those who took action in this, did they think about the child's background? If a child had been abused or hurt by a sexual encounter, those questions could be very triggering. A parent has the right for the emotional safety of their child and the physical safety to determine how much exposure is mentally healthy. This is why I urge Fresno Unified as a board to adapt a bylaw that guarantees that parents must be notified. I also have to look around here today and see so many who judge Mr. Ashjian so harshly and have to wonder why. When President Ashjian's actions for this school district have spoken volumes. Has no one in this room ever said anything that someone took offensive to? I personally have witnessed in this community and school district the great, good work President Ashjian has done for those in most need and most at risk. President Ashjian helps those children and their families.
Thank you, Ms. Jolly.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Fabella, followed by Josh Fulfer.
Good evening again, everybody. To the LGBT community and the Board of Trustees, Trustee De La Cerda is not your friend. He's a one-man hate group. He's a person who tries to cause division within our community in order to cause pain and injury to President Ashjian, who made a mistake, an honest mistake. Someone who Trustee De La Cerda hates passionately. Trustee De La Cerda has brought his act from Charlottesville, Virginia to Fresno, California. He walks down the street of Fresno not chanting Jews will not replace me, but rather with the words like Ashjian must no longer be president and Ashjian doesn't like the LGBT people. Instead of holding a tiki torch to light his way of hatred, he holds up a rolled up copy of his opinion piece in the Fresno Bee that is glowing with hatred and anger. Instead of using a club to beat upon an innocent victim, he uses the anger and frustration that he has rekindled in the hearts of the LGBT community as his own sick personal club to beat upon, embarrass, and defame President Ashjian. Watch De La Cerda and you will see him smile inside as you do his dirty work for him like a tool of hate. Please don't lower yourself to the level of hate groups, thus becoming one of them. Instead, elevate yourself to be one of those groups of people that seek solutions to problems facing the LGBT youth. In the United States, over 40% of the LGBT youth in this country commits suicide. There must find a solution for that, and maybe you can be that solution. Provide solutions that aid and bring social, emotional aid to students who need it. Solutions that help to educate the ignorant so they may be accepting or tolerant of LGBT people. Robert Kennedy once said, one good man alone can cause a ripple of change across the water, but a group of good people will create a tsunami of change across the world.
Thank you, Mr. Fabella. We have Josh Fulfer, followed by Ben Burkham.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm in complete support of you, Brooke. Thank you. I think people need to understand that our constitutional rights don't end where someone's feelings begin. Unfortunately, our schools are no longer ran at a local level with concerned parents. They are dictated by state and federal government, and as parents, we want our children to be able to not go to school and come home and unteach them what they've learned for 8 hours. That's not the job of the school. Reading, writing, arithmetic. You know, you need to stay out of children's sex. It's at the age that we are promoting this is just ridiculous, and I do believe it's child abuse. And again, I stand behind your First Amendment rights. I thank you for speaking up, and you have a lot of supporters. Thank you.
Mr. Ben Burkham, followed by Steve Ryan.
Thanks for having me up. I do support you, Brooke, on this issue. I haven't supported you on everything with we had the sanctuary schools and all that, and so I'm not always behind you, but on this one I'm 100%. Other than your vote to adopt the rules, I think as Christians, and if we claim to be Christians, there is no law that I believe that we should stand for that goes against God's Word. And when we have students being taught anal sex in magazines and this movement in the sex ed curriculum to promote, it's more than just talking about it. It's promoting a lifestyle that many of us disagree with. And as parents, we should have the right to, at minimum, opt out our students from this type of curriculum. At minimum, opt out. But beyond that, we are called to stand, we are called to rise, we are called to be the light in the darkness. The idea of separation of church and state, in my opinion, is nonsense. It came in the 1960s. After we were established on Christian values, this nation was. We had prayer in schools up until about that time. We've allowed our rights as Christians and as American citizens to be diminished. We've allowed debasing of our society and our schools, and it's time that we stand up. If you are gay, God loves you, but I believe your lifestyle is wrong, and I should have the right to have that, and you should not be penalized for having that. You have the right to live the life that you want to live, but we as parents and as individuals should have the right to disagree. I support you. There's and everything else that you're doing. Again, there's a couple things that I disagree with you, but you're doing a heck of a lot more than a lot of people and a lot of other board presidents have. So thank you, sir.
Steve Ryan, followed by Tanya Stokes. Steve Ryan, followed by Tanya Stokes. Steve Ryan. He might be outside. We can go to Ms. Stokes first, and if Mr. Ryan comes in, we'll use him.
As a former homeschooling mom and as a current public school parent, I'm intimately aware of the general ed requirements my children must complete in order to receive their diplomas. Many years of English and math teach them how to problem solve and communicate effectively. Science, both physical and biological, are required. They teach them how their bodies work and how their world works. U.S. modern and world histories are also mandated by this system. In these classes, they learn about many cultures, religions, and ways of life. By enrolling our children in the public schools, we have chosen to expose them to teachers, friends, classmates, all of which have different ways of life. If we wish to limit this exposure, we can choose to homeschool. The diversity in education that we choose with FUSD should not exclude sexual education. This class only exists to fill in the gaps that many parents choose to allow because these conversations are too uncomfortable. How their bodies work, how pregnancy happens, how to prevent STDs. 50 years ago, there were teens scared to death when they started their periods because they thought they were dying. Nocturnal emissions left others feeling embarrassed. They thought they were wetting the bed as a teenager. I know of a young man that hung himself because his parents taught him that masturbation was a sign of mental illness. No one wants to bury a child because of misinformation or a lack of general knowledge. As adults, we don't think about our gender or our sexuality as we go about our day. We don't consider which bathroom we're going to, which area of the store we're going to shop in. But for many teens, for my teen, this can become a life-consuming obsession. Including the LGBT information doesn't teach them a way of life. This is not a how-to section of the curriculum. This explains to our children that there are variances in sexuality and gender identification. Without this limited information offered in this small section of a week-long class...
Thank you. Thank you. So if we could, it would be really nice that and courteous if the audience would not be yelling time to the people that are speaking. I think that I'm able to do that myself. I appreciate the help, but I think I got this one. So we're gonna have courtesy. We're gonna be polite, and we're gonna treat people with respect, whether you're on this side or you're on that side or we're somewhere in the middle. So if we could hear from Kayla Metcalf Armstrong, followed by Patty Potter. There's some people outside, so we'll give them just a moment.
I just want to commend you on the civility of the dialogue. Thank you very much.
Yes. Patty, please come forward. Thank you. I don't see Miss Armstrong.
Good evening. My name is Patty Potter, and I'm a retired teacher. I had 2 children that graduated from Fresno Unified. I currently have 2 grandchildren in Fresno Unified, and I'm also speaking just as a concerned citizen. In respect to Mr. Ashjian and his comments that we're talking about today, I respect his right to have his personal opinions. My concern is when he expresses those opinions as a board member. I have very strong opinions about things, but as a teacher, in my role as teacher, I kept those to myself. When I went out in the community, believe me, I expressed those opinions. And so I'm here today to ask the board to address this matter because I think it's inappropriate that as a board member that you or he is expressing these opinions. And I think it's affecting his decision-making in the school board. I've had concerns before, but let me just address the quote he said in the B, you have kids who are extremely moldable at this stage, and if you start telling them that LGBT is okay, that it's a way of life, well, maybe you have just swayed a kid to go that way. It's so important for parents to teach these Judeo-Christian philosophies. Well, it's his opinion that if you tell them LGBT is okay, well, being LGBT is not okay is his opinion, but according to the state of California and the law of the land, it is okay. He says that maybe you just might sway the child that way. According to the Medical Association, it's not a choice issue. So his opinion is, being...
Thank you, Ms. Potter.
Oh my gosh, that went quickly. And I timed myself.
So we are going to take 3 more speakers, and we're going to have, and I'll call them out now, Leon Velasco, Zoyer Zaidel, and Jordan Fitzpatrick. If they could come forward, please. Leon Velasco. Not here. Zoyer Zaidel.
Hello. Is this already on? Good evening. My name is Zoyer Zaidel, and I am the chairperson for Transmotion, a transgender advocacy group here in Fresno. I also have a master's in social work. As far as Ashjian's comments, it's very harmful to students. It sends a message to LGBT students that their identity is not valid, that they are not important, and part of a group of people that should be equal. These kinds of comments add to an environment that results in almost half of transgender youth committing suicide or attempting suicide, this is very problematic. Personal opinion has no business in the professional world, especially when that opinion makes an uninformed assumption about a group of people. It's not only medically inaccurate, because sex and gender are two separate things, but it sends a message that it is okay to spew misinformation. Mr. Ashjian, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts. I was a student, a transgender one at that, and nothing anyone said in the class could have influenced me toward my true gender identity. What did happen, however, is that the classroom taught me how the world sees me. The negative comments, such as yours, increased negative feelings about myself, while positive inclusion of LGBT experiences in my studies strengthened positive views about myself and empowered me to become someone who gives back to their community. In reference to the comments on child abuse, how is educating our students child abuse, but keeping LGBT students from learning their history and culture not child abuse? It's only child abuse to some people, I guess. It's appalling that a man who is on the front lines of education has not done anything to educate himself on matters around the LGBT community, which tells me that learning about minorities is not a priority to you. Mr. Ashjian, if you are serious about education and the students you serve, you will choose to obtain proper education about LGBT people over spewing religious rhetoric and misinformation when it is not warranted. These are our students. This is our future. Y'all need to take it seriously.
Thank you. We will hear from Jordan Fitzpatrick, followed by our final speaker for this section will be Allison Murphy.
Hello, my name is Jordan Fitzpatrick. I'm the Secretary of Transmotion. I am pleased that you are considering having more programs for LGBT students. And I hope that we can maybe have some cultural competency trainings for the Fresno Unified School District. I am, however, really upset with President Ashjian. I think that it's a disgrace to have someone like him representing Fresno Unified School District. There is a separation of church and state. We should not be having religious views dictate education. And Fresno is a very diverse Fresno is a very diverse city. There's many religions, and to advocate one religion over the other is completely unfair. And once again, there is a separation of church and state. There is an extremely high suicide rate among the LGBT community, specifically the transgender community. It is underreported at 41%. The reason why there is such a high suicide rate is because there is an extremely high rate of discrimination, prejudice, and the words that Ashjian uses, the words that parents and community members have said here against the LGBT community, those are words that lead to children feeling unsafe and unwelcome in this world, and they end up taking their own lives. So I'm asking you as a board to remove Ashjian as the president, or Ashjian should resign from the board, because someone like that should not be representing Fresno Unified School District. We do not need fascists in our school district. Thank you.
Ms. Murphy, and then after Ms. Murphy, we will take a 10-minute break, and then we'll go on with our agenda.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the board this evening. I'm a Clovis Unified graduate. I raised my daughter in the Clovis Unified School District. I've been a member of the community my whole life. I have been educated greatly through the death of my daughter. I'm a mother of a transgender Buchanan High graduate from 2009 who decided to put a shotgun in her mouth and blow her head off. This is exactly because of the nature of what the discussion is tonight. I think that education needs to be profound with the adults first. We need to be open to the communication and the conversation about what the LGBT community is dealing with. For me, it's the transgender community at large. They need to have more focus on exactly what's going on with them. All of the LGBT kids feel left out. They feel not accepted. As Jordan just stated, 41% of trans kids do this. highly underrated, because when you have a child or someone that commits suicide, these things are unknown. You have no idea why they've done this. So, of course, these things aren't, talked about enough in the home. You've got a separation of church and state. I know that the school district has a hard time with talking about church in the district. I am a Christian. My God does not do any judgment as far as who you should be and who you shouldn't be. We should be empowering our youth. We should be empowering them to be exactly who they are. By suppressing an LGBT student, you could be suppressing somebody amazing. And because they've been told they're not good enough, or they're wrong, or something that they're doing is not right, they're putting themselves at risk. You're putting themselves at risk by pushing this in their direction. I bring with you my daughter's ashes tonight to hopefully focus on
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
This topic.
We're going to take... Yes. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to continue with our business. And at the end of the meeting, I still have people that wish to speak. We're going to allow everybody to speak as soon as we're done with our business of the night. So thank you, and we're going to rejoin back on the dais at 10 minutes to 9. Continue with our unscheduled communications. We'll start with Beverly Fitzpatrick, and we will follow her up with Mark Coleman. Okay. We will go to Saul Eskin, followed by Dr. Kevin Macy Ayati. Okay. Melissa Fairless, followed by Mr. Watkins. Mr. Watkins is here. Okay. All right.
I've got to say, the interim made me really appreciate the magnitude of the workload this district has. I mean, I'm used to just dealing with teachers and occasional administrators. Hello again. I emailed all of you late last night a letter I wrote to President Ashjian. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. A hard copy has been distributed to you. For the record, I'll read it. Dear Mr. Ashjian, after much consideration, I write to urge you to voluntarily step down as President of the Board of Trustees of the Fresno Unified School District. While I respect your right to have personal views that may not comport with the requirements of the law, as President of the Board of Trustees, you have a responsibility to speak in a manner that does not denigrate students attending Fresno Unified. Your recent statements concerning the teaching of LGBT inclusive sex education showed an ignorance of science and are an insult to LGBT students attending Fresno Unified schools. Numerous studies show that certain traits are innate or genetically predetermined. Being left-handed is an example. I am left-handed, and I definitely did not voluntarily choose to be so. It is a trait I was born with. Many other studies show that being LGBT is a trait and not a choice. People who are members of the LGBT community deserve as much respect as heterosexual community members. I appreciate the fact that when I was just starting school, that my parents respected my left-handedness and stopped my teacher from trying to convert me from writing the wrong way to writing right-handed. Our Board of Trustees needs to be led by a president who does not espouse bad science to support his personal views, especially when those views can have a negative impact on students, families, and the diverse communities in our school district. For the sake of our students and the credibility of our school district, please resign from the office of board president. You will still continue to serve on the board as the duly elected by the voters in Area 7. If you decline to step down, I urge the remaining board members to vote to remove you from office.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Michael Evans, followed by Jessica Mahoney. Okay, Jessica Mahoney, followed by Reverend Tim Kutzmark.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent. My name is Jessica Mahoney, contracted bus driver.
I'm here speaking on the behalf of me and not as a bus driver or employee of Fresno Unified. See how easy that was? But yet, how many you have underneath your belt now? 3 radio shows, Twitter feeds, Facebook, newspapers. Yeah, you have a right to say what you want to do, but we also have a thing called extagiment clause. The First Amendment has 2 clauses. One, that you don't force religion on others, and you keep it separate. The problem I'm having is, this is education. We don't take sides. We don't have this sides and this and us and them. You've been on radio saying, I. Oh, I did this. I hired psychologists. I did this for the special education department. You're a team. If you spell team, there's no I in it. What I think needs to happen, because you are elected official, you're not a school employee, you get $18,000 a stipend. What we need to revise the bylaws, and we need to do a bylaw called, and a lot of city councils do this, called reorganization. And they don't have to give a reason. What we do, you guys do a study session or a simple vote, hey, I'm going to do a recall, and you guys decide who's going to swap seats. So we don't have this mess, and we can stay to the business of the district. It's very simple. You don't lose your job, but it calms you down to stay focused. And the problem is, with you, you're a businessman. You're not an educator. A lot of these folks are principals, teachers that come from educational background. What was embarrassing when that chart was up there and you didn't know how to read it, 3rd grade, 8th grade, it was like, okay, of course you're not going to do the same math in 3rd grade as you do in 8th grade.
Thank you, Ms. Mahoney. Reverend Tim Kutzmark, followed by Ruth Jenkins.
Hi, my name is Reverend Tim Kutzmark, and I serve as minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. Like it or not, California is a 3 strikes and you're out state. Our current board president has made 3 strikes, and so he must be out. Strike 1. Board President Brooke Ashjian used religion to gay bash vulnerable LGBTQ kids in the Fresno Unified School District. Learning about safe sex practices and the existence of LGBTQ people does not turn a straight student gay. He insults those of us who are LGBTQ when he repeats that insidious lie. Free speech is not the same as hate speech. Strike 2, Fresno is not a Judeo-Christian city, nor is the school district a Judeo-Christian school district. Fresno and the school district is made richer, not lesser, by its affirmation of its multi-faith community. Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Sikhs, Shintoists, Unitarian Universalists, Wiccan, and earth-based spirituality. Our current school board president dismisses one of Fresno's greatest strengths when he focuses on the worth of only one religious tradition. Strike 3, speaking against a comprehensive approach to avoiding teenage pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections is flouting research and best practices, which should be valued in any system charged with education. Abstinence-only teaching is bad science and bad education, and our school board president is ill-advised to promote it. Free speech is not the same as ignorant speech. Strike 1, insult LGBTQ youth and teens and spread a hateful lie. Strike 2, insult the multi-faith community. Strike 3, insult good science and good education practices. You're out.
Ruth Jenkins, followed by Deborah Maggie.
Board, Mr. Ashjian, I'm still here. I was here at 4:15 and put in my card to speak at that point. And when I asked you about it, you told me you were done speaking to me. But I'm speaking to you now. I am Ruth Jenkins. I am the president of the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. We are calling for your resignation from the school board Your statements in response to the curriculum for sexual education deny the worth and dignity of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals, and demonstrate that you are unqualified to serve in any capacity on the school board. We feel that it is equally unfit for you to be a member given your stated bias that privileges the Judeo-Christian faith. Fresno's rich cultural diversity includes moral and ethical individuals who participate in Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Jewish, Muslim, or Unitarian Universalist faith communities, or no faith community at all. We question your ability to serve all of the members of the community, so we feel we must ask for your resignation. There is no place for intolerance in education.
Thank you. Please. Deborah Maggie, followed by Eleanor Dote.
Hi, and thank you. I'm totally unprepared to be here. I did not come here with the intent of making a speech, so here I am. First of all, let me say I'm not being paid to be here, and I was not bussed in. I'm here as a concerned citizen for the Fresno Unified School District and for the education of our children. I've been sitting here looking at your core beliefs for the last 3 hours. Number 3, leadership. I don't see much leadership coming from the president. When your leadership is insulting to the community, you insulted your very members that sit with you. You insulted the superintendent. You insulted the citizens of Fresno by what you said. You went national. Fresno made national news for being bigoted and being hateful and being intolerant. That was unacceptable. Safety. We've talked about safety. ShotSpotter. We spent a lot of time on ShotSpotter. You guys spend a lot of money on that. Where's the safety for our children that go to school and expect to have tolerance and understanding from their co-students? What you said left them all at risk for their safety. I would venture to say more children are damaged by suicide and harm in that way than they are by the need for ShotSpotters. So, the safety for our children is a big concern, and you have risked our children by what you said. Culture is not just economic, not just your nationality. It's a culture of choice, and you took away that choice. I don't know what the solution is other than your resignation. I don't know what the procedure would be, because I understand that the superintendent could ask it to go before the board to have a vote. I say vote you out, and I'm sorry, I say that respectfully, and you have a right to your First Amendment, and by golly, I'll be the first one to fight for First Amendment rights, but you don't have the right to speak for this whole board, and that's what you spoke for. You spoke for the people of Fresno, and you didn't have a right to do that.
Thank you very much. Eleanor, do we have Eleanor Dote, followed by Cade Acuna?
Parents, staff, friends, and Fresno Unified Board members. Good evening. My name is Eleanor Dote, and Mr. Ashjian, I wholeheartedly agree with your point on free speech. I support your right to have your own opinion. That being said, there seems to be a lack of understanding that as an elected official, whenever you speak publicly or to the media, you are doing so as a representative of the school board. Sure, we have the freedoms afforded to us by the Constitution, but I was taught at a young age that with great freedom comes great responsibility. So as you look around the community who have come to share their feelings about the comments that were made, it's worth asking the question, who is going to bear the responsibility for the environment that these comments have created within the district? What has made it worse is that this incident is not alone. In May of this year, my son graduated from Bullard High School after successfully completing his education as a special ed student in the district. After graduation, my partner and I sat and listened as Mr. Ashjian told the crowd that 40% of special ed students were not born that way, and that the attendance rating of kids in wheelchairs at Rata was 98%. Mr. Ashjian then went on to tell the graduating class that the only place that they ever show up 100% of the time is Snapchat. So I asked, where is the research to back up these claims? So members of the board, if our students were to turn in research papers with claims like these made to prove a point, would they receive a passing grade? If not, then I ask you, what sort of example are we setting for our children if we do not ask the same for those leading the schools? I would like to say that our leadership leads by example, but sadly that does not seem to be the case. Because of this, I feel like I have lost my confidence in Mr. Ashjian's ability to continue to lead our students as president of the Fresno Unified School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kate Acuna, followed by Barbara Barstow.
Hello. I did not expect to speak today. I came to listen. I came to hear out my community and what they had to say in response to Ashton's comments in the Fresno Bee. I'm a youth. I've never been to a board meeting before. This is my first time. So here I go. So I'm an FUSD alumni. I went to Hoover High School and I graduated in the class of 2017. I'm the former president of the Hoover GSA, and I am also a member of GSA Network's National Youth Council. I'm also not very good at speaking, so. So inclusive sex ed is something I wish that I had. That's not a luxury that FUSD gave me. That's something that I would have really appreciated as a youth. Students who are LGBT oftentimes don't have access to comprehensive sexual education. So having that in schools not only helps with preventing STDs, but also normalizing what they feel, not even just sexually, romantically. That's all in your heart, not about what's your body parts and who we're doing stuff with. Also, we're at school to learn. We shouldn't feel like we're in an unsafe environment when we're being taught these things. And I know I have a short amount of time about this, but if you're looking out for the best interests of students, you shouldn't be having opinions about what it is we do with our bodies. You should be protecting our rights to have those. That's all I really have to say. Please resign.
Thank you. Ms. Barbara Barstow. Chris Fisher, followed by Miguel Bigonco. Chris Fisher, followed by Miguel Bigonco.
Okay, I'll try and make this quick. All right, so I'm a parent of 6 kids that were previously homeschooled that were in a hybrid program, but now they're full-time public school kids now in Fresno, California. So I literally have skin in the game. It's not theory for me. I'm concerned. Sex education is education on sex, not philosophy or preference of sex or gender, how one feels about their genetic sex. Real science should deal with observable particular function, as sex education deals with organs that exist to perform a unique function, which that both organ sets, when healthy, are capable or incomplete to perform, rather, without the opposite sex counterparts. Those unique functions are for reproduction, but they have half the specified components for that task, which is unique to them, and thus their most obvious function. Orgasms alone can be achieved many ways, but the sex of a person is determined by their chromosomes and organs. That's what kids need to know about as far as education is concerned. Not all ways to potentially have an orgasm or feel sexually thrilled or satisfied. This is not a place for public school, but maybe privately funded through a sex therapist or something, or maybe relative to history, theology maybe, philosophy or science. Let them do that. Those disciplines deal with the realms that include lifestyle and opinion, but function is determined by the maker and is clearly observable and scientifically tested. We're all here to, as a result of that successful repeated task. Your opponents can't have it both ways. You say that words can instigate behavior. They say words can instigate behavior, but they say that your words hurt, but their words don't hurt. It's double standard, selective free speech, and that's how fascism actually works. It also has to do with definition of harm, which is an opinion you're both equally entitled to. Personal responsibility is with the individual. 25 years ago, when I was 10 years old, I tried to hang myself when I was in a very dark place and without God in the world. But now I'm married happily for 10 years and have 6 kids. And if it weren't for hard truth being spoken to me, I wouldn't be here right now. I would have taken my life with my own hand. It would not have been my parents' fault, although I was neglected.
Thank you.
But that's not on them.
Thank you for coming. Miguel Viganco. Kenneth Mackey, followed by Camille Herrera.
Good evening, Board President Ashjian, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Nelson. Now for something completely different. My name is Kenneth R. Mackey. I am of the law firm Canelo, Wallace, Padron, and Mackey, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the original Fresno Watchdogs for Ethical Bidding. 2 weeks ago, I was given a cease and desist letter from a Sacramento attorney representing a corporation by the same name, and telling me to stop using the name under threat of being sued. I have just filed a complaint for injunction for court order preventing the corporation from using the name by which my clients have been known for nearly a year and a half. Moving on to the second item that I listed, I have also filed a third FPPC complaint, which has been passed out to the board. This one regarding allegations of undisclosed real estate, real property, which Mr. Ashjian apparently has an interest in during the reporting periods and has not disclosed his interest in these different pieces of real estate totaling about $2 to $3 million. And finally, I am also asking the FPPC to file a civil action against Mr. Ashjian for his failures to disclose, his votes against conflict of interest laws, etc. They will have 120 days to respond. If they do not choose to file a civil action against Mr. Ashjian, I have been authorized to go ahead and do so. If there's any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Camille Herrera. No, Camille. James Mendez, MD. Okay, we're going to move it. So I'd like to have my comments word for word put into the record so we can attach to the record tonight. Superintendent, ladies and gentlemen, in the last few days we've seen our community torn by misrepresentations and false allegations by individuals who represent the national LGBT movement. They came to our community from out of town to demand that I resign my seat on the school board simply because I dare to express concerns regarding a curriculum which will be taught to our children. State law mandates certain things to be taught, which I stated publicly I would support because it's the law, even though I have concerns. But for the intolerant, that isn't good enough. You see, they want to silence any voice who dares question anything LGBT. Their tactics and narrow-mindedness remind me of those individuals my great-grandparents spoke about during the dark days of the Ottoman Empire leading up to the 1915 genocide of our people. 1.5 million Armenians were murdered because they dared to disagree with the powers that be. The intolerance shown by the Ottomans toward my people was insufferable. These leaders of the LGBT movement are much like them. They're outsiders coming here to attack my church, trying to blame the faith community for the comments that I alone am responsible for. This, too, was a tool of the Ottoman Empire as they tried to diminish the Armenian churches. Let me be clear. I spoke as an elected official and as a father. The day parents and their duly elected representative lose their voice in matters of education impacting our children is the day we morph from education to indoctrination. As an elected official representing the parents of this district who elected me with almost 90% of the vote, one of the highest percentages in California history, their vote empowers me to be a watchman on the tower, a voice of reason, to raise a flag of concern when warranted. If we cannot speak openly and freely, then how are we an open and free society? What do these LGBT leaders fear? Dialogue? Or could it be they simply want to silence anyone who may express or hold a differing opinion? To me, this is pure fascism. The undeniable truth is in our country. We have the right to express our opinions. It's called freedom of speech. These individuals who are personally attacking me, my religious foundation, while demanding my resignation, I ask why. Is it simply because I exercised my constitutional rights of freedom of speech while I was doing my duty? Or is it something more nefarious, like simply desiring to muzzle anyone who dares not fall in line with the narrative of the day? It is sad. They, like the Ottomans, are trying to be the thought police. They are trying to make people of a faith second-class citizens, and they seek to silence our voices in the public square, just like my great-grandparents. And millions of others had to endure at the hands of the Ottomans before escaping to America. Today, we are being attacked, vilified, labeled, and accused by people who know nothing about me, my personal history, or my beliefs. They simply want to impose their will upon others by silencing our voices. Again, much like the Ottomans who silenced, belittled, or even worse, any Armenian who dared to question or stand up to the politically correct voices of their day, I say today, on behalf of our American Armenian community, no, not again. Not on my watch. They say I'm intolerant. Yet I'm not the one seeking to impose my will upon others. The truth is, the very people who demand tolerance from others are in fact the true intolerants. They seek to silence all voices who express or share a concern or a difference of opinion. Instead of respecting the differences of opinion and honoring the equal rights granted to all, they dishonor the Constitution. Benjamin Franklin said freedom of speech is a principal pillar of a free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is dissolved and tyranny is erected on its ruins. Is that what we want as a legacy for our children? For me, the slippery slope to the Ottoman Empire, if we are not vigilant. That is not the America we know and love, which became home and refuge to my ancestors and my people, as well as millions of others. Remember, if freedom of speech is limited only to those who society views as politically correct, then it's only a matter of time before these same short-sighted and bigoted individuals will turn their sights upon other freedoms granted us by the Constitution, such as the freedom of the press and the freedom of religion. I want to be clear. I want to be very clear. I will not resign my position. I will not be silenced by the bullies who want to control the public narrative by mischaracterizing the intent and meaning of my statements. My comments were not intended to offend anyone, but simply to express a concern. If we as board members cannot openly and honestly express concerns without being marginalized and labeled, then why do we have a board? In closing, I want to thank my supporters, our community, the people that came here tonight, all of them. And I want to reiterate, Fresno Unified School District supports freedom of speech and equality for all. We respect and appreciate varying opinions. Historically, we have never been afraid to discuss and openly debate any given subject, for this is what makes America great. Meeting adjourned.